Hey, what is up, everybody, and welcome to the College Info Geek Podcast. How's it going, my dude?
It's going.
I'm back from vacation.
That is true. I forgot that happened entirely.
Yeah, my first real, actual vacation in, I think, since November 2016.
What year is now?
2018, I think.
Whoa, that's a while.
And I also
Apparently.
turned 27 on Monday.
That's true.
So I am now an old man, and I think I'm falling apart, actually.
It's not better.
No, actually, it's fine. I'm okay with it.
Oh.
As much as people love to make old people jokes, like Anna was asking me, how do you feel now that you're 27? And I said, well, I feel healthier than I've ever been. And I'm doing pretty good, actually. I don't feel too bad about being
old. To not be past your prime. What a world.
You're not past your prime. You just have to, rethink what your prime is. Like, my prime skill in certain video games was when I was 13. I'm certainly past that prime.
My prime Monster Hunter skills up, I'm at that.
You're at your prime right now?
Monster Hunter.
That's true. And you have another Monster Hunter game coming out.
Yes.
In what, when is that coming out?
No idea.
The Switch one.
I can't keep track of time. Sometime this year, I think.
Okay.
Probably. What's a year?
Oh, wait a minute. Isn't there a Nintendo Direct happening?
I don't know.
It will have already happened once this episode goes out. But
apparently not involved in the world enough to know anything that is happening.
Well then, knowledge for you. There is a Nintendo Direct happening very soon.
I like that.
I just want to shout out this guy right here to anybody watching the video feed of the podcast. You got me this cool Splatoon plushie.
Oh, yeah, duh.
That is on the set, but I think is kind of hidden by all of our books.
Oh, well,
that
happens.
Thank you for this cool set edition. I will find a way to more prominently feature it the next time we build a set, which will be much better than this set. But this week, we are going to talk about something that I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that this is a direct result of us doing that 10 lessons episode, because this was your idea.
I don't remember.
Well, we're going to talk about how to take criticism.
Yeah.
And in that episode, we had this whole discussion about kids needing to learn how to lose, all that kind of stuff. So I was wondering if that maybe gave you the inspiration.
No, but that's actually that's fairly fitting, so there's probably some good stuff coming from that angle too.
So what gave you the inspiration, if not that, then?
I got a tweet. A tweet from...
Just somebody asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, asking about how to handle constructive criticism when it comes to their coding without being annoyed,
Okay. I think this is actually an interesting topic.
So I thought, let's expand it. And, because Ashley and Anna went to design school where constantly you got to put all your work on the wall and everybody has to criticize it and be like, everything is garbage.
Yeah.
Here's why. And you got to learn to deal with that. And criticism is the easiest path to getting better at stuff because that's why we want a teacher or a coach or anyone, because their job is literally to tell us how we are slightly wrong and how to be slightly less wrong. And if we're not willing to take criticism, we have to take the long way to learning anything.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a topic that at first glance seems really simple, but I think there's actually a lot that could be said in the pursuit of being able to deal with those feelings of hurt that come with being criticized.
Yeah.
I think that's the ultimate goal that people want to get to, is be able to take criticism without... I don't think you're ever going to not feel hurt, but without letting that be the driving emotion.
Yeah.
That, that stays with you after the initial shock of the criticism, I guess. So, you came with this idea. So what are some initial thoughts?
Well, so my very first thoughts, which, of course, a lot of this, it's going to be hard because this isn't such a direct topic. It's an abstract thing, and it's a mindset change. It's not like all you got to do is time block. There's no concrete thing to say. I can't tell you to snap your fingers 3 times and now you're magically less hurt by criticism. So it's a slow mindset change that you sort of practice and get better at over time. But for me, what helps is that, one, my very most valued trait in myself to have and to cultivate is humility. Okay. So at all times, no matter what I'm doing, there is always someone who could tell me how to do it slightly better. There is always someone who could help show me, even if they don't mean to, even if it's just like, oh, from example, I understand something now. I think I could learn something from everyone at all times, and I think that is an important life thing in general, but also when taking criticism, it's better because I'm prepared for them to be able to show me something I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So one of the things I said as a response to that tweet in general was in the mindset of a curious student, all new knowledge is welcomed, and new information is a chance to learn.
Yeah.
But in the mindset of a proud master, all new information is threatening because it might show you you're not quite the master that you think you are. So you do not want to be in a situation where you're scared to improve your knowledge base because it might show you don't know things.
I remember seeing a tweet from James Clear the other day, and I believe the way that he phrased it was that the only truly creative people out there are the ones who have nothing, because once you have something, you want to protect it, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to be a little bit reactionary to anything new that comes into your life if it seems to threaten that which you have. I mean, we are a lot more sensitive to potential loss than potential gain.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. You know, our ancestors didn't want to be eaten or killed.
No, I don't want to lose my limbs. I use them for various things.
You know, threats are to be taken seriously. But I think that if you can cultivate a mindset of never believing you have it all, whether it be knowledge or whether it be, status or whether it be just even material possessions, like always thinking there's something more to be gained, then you are going to be more open to new ideas. And I think you're going to be more creative because you don't believe that you have everything already, and you're not going to believe that the only thing to do is protect it. You're not like the dragon hoarding the treasure at this point.
Yeah.
You're still the adventurer
and
trying to find it.
Like on a similar note, you're going to want to, we put our identity into things. We care about the work we do, particularly creative work, but anything, because humans want to be validated and accepted. And a lot of what we're upset about has nothing to do with the criticism, because we might literally be thinking, they're right, but no, I'm going to fight it anyway, because I wanted them to accept me and they didn't. They didn't validate my progress. And
that's something that Anna and I actually vocally say a lot.
Yeah.
When one of us will point out something the other is doing that's wrong, and the person who is being criticized will say, "I know you're right, but I'm mad at you anyway."
That's better. That's self-aware and it's funny.
Yep.
But I think on the note of it being about validating your progress, that's what you want to focus on is the work itself, not the product. So to take that coding example, if I code a really cool project, a really cool website that does something I don't know, it creates cats. It literally 3D prints living cats. You just press a button. And if I put all of my pride and identity as the guy who made that website, and there's something wrong with it, or there's a criticism for it, I feel like it's me now. I am hurt. But if I identify I don't care about that project. I care about the work that goes into it. It was just a milestone toward future progress. I'm still working at all times. So now somebody who tells me how to fix it, they're not threatening my accomplishment that I need to sit on and protect, like you said.
Yeah.
They're telling me, hey, do you want to keep working, right? That's your identity, is that you keep coding on stuff.
Okay.
Here's more stuff to code. You could do this better. And I say, thank you, actually, because I'm now really excited to continue working on the thing that I love.
So it's essentially the difference between wrapping your identity up in that one project you did versus having a solid internally, centered identity and being confident that even if something you made has flaws, it's not saying that you have flaws. It's that, the thing has flaws, and you can improve upon them.
Yeah, and if you identify as just doing the work, then you're saying, first of all, they're accepting your identity.
Right.
They're accepting, I'm the kind of person who codes stuff. So when they gave me something to code, then they're viewing me how I wanted them to, as somebody who would be excited to code this.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a better way to look at it in general. And a lot of it is just about everyone could teach me something. If you're ready to protect your project and it's all you have, first of all, you can't keep growing.
Yeah.
Because you're protecting the one thing. But second of all, you can't get better ever. And I think the stuff I did years ago was garbage, basically. And if I don't think that in 5 years, then I've stopped growing. I should probably think what I'm doing right now is garbage in 5 years. Or at least the majority of the technical skill behind it, if not the concepts.
I don't want to go as far as saying that, you should think that all of your work from 5 years prior is
garbage.
Code
just evolves really fast.
That's okay. Yes, in coding, you do look at your previous code and you're like, okay, that could.
Other things may not evolve so quickly.
But I think about blog posts that I wrote 5 years ago. I could certainly do better now, but I don't think that they're garbage because I don't want to start believing that my prior work is valueless. I want to be able to look at that and say, I would still feel proud sharing that with somebody because I think it's going to help them. And I know that, because of the breadth of the work that I do, I can't spend every single day making a newer, better version of that thing I made 5 years ago.
No.
Like if I made a blog post on this, a specific topic in habit building 5 years ago, and right now I'm working on something else, I can't just drop that because I'm, worried that because there's 5 years between now and then, that is worthless.
Yeah.
So I think it's more a case of viewing or hoping that you can view your current work as better and as a step up than that old work.
I was basically only viewing the coding example where
Yeah.
when I look back, I'm just like, I could do that so much more efficiently with the exact same thing. With writing and more in like the creative aspects of stuff,
Right.
like it's less changing, I think.
Well, I think it's fun. It's fun to say my old work was garbage.
But also, I'm just being cynical about my old code. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fun to say that. It's fun to be self-deprecating. But in reality, like that work had a purpose, and it served the purpose.
Yeah, it was a milestone on the progress toward getting better at stuff.
Yeah.
Which I hope I never stop doing.
If I were to seriously feel that all my work was garbage, then that would mean that I was not properly serving, say, all the clients I used to work for in web development. Like, that was so bad that I should give you a refund. In fact, there's a website, and I can't remember. Oh, it's actually a subreddit. There's a subreddit out there, and I'm going to try to put it in the show notes because I can't think of the name, but it's basically a subreddit of people being super entitled. I think it's called like Choosing Beggars or something like that.
Oh, Choosy Beggars.
I think it's that. Yeah.
I've seen one of those.
So there's one where this person had bought an art commission from somebody, and then 6 months later, they message this artist and they say, "Hey, I would like a redo of the art." And the person's like, "Why are you messaging me so late? Did you not like it? What's the deal?" And they said, "No, it was fine when you gave it to me, but now your skills have improved, and I think I'm entitled to a new version of it
They want
because
a
you're better."
retroactive refund,
Yeah.
basically?
Yeah, it was the most nonsensical thing I've ever read. It was ridiculous.
No.
That's
dumb.
They were getting mad. They were like, "You're ripping me off. If you don't redo this for me, you're ripping me off because you're so much better now. Now I have something that's not even worthy of your skills. I've been ripped off."
Did they buy a subscription? Is that a new business model for emerging artists?
There we go.
To form
Freelance
the
artists out
subscription
there.
model, I
Yeah.
will redo this and make it better every 5 years. You just have to you have to keep paying me. I'm on retainer for this.
Yep. But when I retire, my skills start to slip. You have to accept my newer, crappier versions too. That's the deal.
It evolves and devolves with me.
Life happens in cycles, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found that ridiculous. So again, I don't want to say my past work was garbage, but I should be seeing a constant, path of improvement happening.
You should hopefully be able to say, I could constructively criticize a lot of what I've done before.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to all be completely bad. It's mostly just little things like maybe I could have phrased this more eloquently.
Exactly.
Or maybe this could have been split up into a couple of functions and it would have been more clever or, anything.
So here's, I think, a really useful mental hack for not taking personal offense or getting defensive when somebody else criticizes your work. Look at work you did a few years ago. And you're naturally going to criticize it. You're going to immediately pick out things that you could have done better, and you are going to feel 100% fine about that. You're not going to feel defensive for your past self. You're going to think, well, duh, I should have done that better, but now I've learned and now I know better. There's no way that version of me would have known. So acknowledge and for a couple of minutes, dwell on your feelings about your own criticism of your past work. And then try to apply that to criticism you receive from other people. Because, see, there's a difference. You get criticized by other people and you naturally want to be defensive. But when you criticize your own work, there's none of those feelings there. Why is that difference there? I think it's because when we have an external source criticizing us, we view it as a threat. That's kind of like a biologically, hardwired piece of our minds. But if you can bring that contrast up in your mind in the moment, I think you're going to have a better time coping with that criticism.
Yeah.
You can just view it as this is the same as me criticizing my own work. This person probably has a perspective I don't have, and it may be due to the fact that they have more experience.
Yeah.
So one thing that I thought about a long time ago, and I remember specifically thinking about this in terms of an algorithm for dealing with criticism, certain steps, and certain ways of comparing the criticism to, or seeing if it's valid, I guess. I remember thinking about this while driving back to Ames one day when I was in college. This was pretty early in CIG's history, because not all criticism is valid, right?
Yeah.
Some people are going to criticize your work from a position of, animosity because they're just mean, or because they're trying to feel better about themselves, or because, what makes them feel better about themselves is trying to feel superior to you by criticizing your work. I think a lot of people don't criticize things from a place of benevolence, from a place of giving and generosity and trying to help people. A lot of people criticize things from a place of wanting to make themselves look smart or look like they're the expert.
Yeah.
Sometimes people just don't have the expertise, so they are naive and they're going to think you should have done it this way when that doesn't work, and you probably know why that doesn't work. And then, as we've seen a million times on the YouTube channel, there are always people who say, Tom, you talk too fast. Tom, you talk too slow. Speed it up. Obviously, you can't.
Both are useful criticisms, but you can't do both.
Exactly. Yeah,
So you have to balance it.
I can't slow down my speech and also speed up my speech. That's contradictory. So I just have to choose which one. So when thinking through this, I think it's first useful to ask yourself, what is the intent of the person criticizing my work right now? If the intent is to hurt me, whether it's because they're sadistic and they're a bully, or it is because they're trying to build themselves up, then that criticism isn't worth even thinking about for more than like a second. So obviously there's like some emotional work you have to do on yourself to be able to move past that and to be able to stifle those feelings of hurt and move on. But logically, you can tell yourself that criticism isn't worth my time. It isn't worth my consideration. I'm going to move on from it. If the criticism comes from a position of the person wants to help you, then you can move on. Then you can start to ask yourself, is this criticism worthy? Does it actually make sense? Should I implement it into my work? And sometimes you're not going to be able to answer that question. Sometimes you don't have the knowledge to know whether or not that criticism is valid, and sometimes you will. So I think there's this process of building up your own judgment, which at the end of the day is the most important thing because that's your center. But when you first immediately receive criticism, the number one thing you have to do is gauge the intent.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to see everything as a threat, or you're going to see everything as valid, and it's just going to waste a lot of your time.
Yeah.
You're going to be very stressed out.
On the other hand, though, don't entirely dismiss negative criticism. Just dismiss it more quickly, because even if somebody's just a terrible, horrible jerk of a boss or something, they may have a point on accident if you take this tiny piece of it. I saw something online where they were suggesting take the criticism, rewrite it in your own words. So you take out all the offensive part. Just what would this look like if it was just nothing but a phrase on the work itself without the attacking pieces. And you can't think about it while you're emotional. That's not going to help. Like you said, I know you're right, but I'm mad right now. So just leave it. Come back to it later. And I think an important thing to note is that sometimes it may be that they don't understand your project or what you're trying, what perspective you're doing, and that is sort of a subtle criticism, that an unspoken criticism that you're not expressing what you're trying to do well enough. So maybe if you're excited about this project you're working on or this picture you're trying to make, and they're like, something, I don't like that ladybug position. The only thing I could think of was a picture I did. But then, I like that photo because of the perspective, because it looks like it comes from the perspective of another insect. But if people get confused about that, that might say, oh, somehow that intent was not obvious enough. Is that on me? Or is it just that they aren't as interested in this topic? Because sometimes it might be on you. You didn't explain what you were doing well enough. Otherwise, they would have understood.
And that's an opportunity for you to gauge your intention with the work that you're doing. Because maybe you don't care what the audience thinks. Maybe it is purely your artistic vision, and whether or not the audience enjoys it is a byproduct that, you could take it or leave it. But if your intent is to make something that should hopefully get a good audience reaction, then absolutely.
You want it to be understood if you're making it for the people.
And I do want to clarify that first step in the process, that difference between people trying to hurt you and people actually trying to help you. If a message is negatively worded, that doesn't automatically mean their sole intent is to hurt you.
Yeah.
It just might mean that they haven't really worked on their compassion and their ability to communicate in a compassionate way. They may be a little bit of a jerk or maybe a little bit of an abrasive keyboard warrior, but it doesn't mean that they don't have valid points. So you do have to learn to deal with the tone and the way that people deliver what they're saying. And if it's emotionally hurtful, you just kind of have to build some armor against that. But if you get a comment that is purely hurtful, this is stupid, you should delete your channel.
Yeah, that's pointless.
That is
nothing.
Completely pointless.
That's not a real criticism.
And it is most likely that that person is only saying that because there is something going on in their life that, makes them feel bad about their own life. This is how I feel every single time somebody writes a just 100% purely hurtful comment on my YouTube channel.
That's just me.
It's all you.
Every time. New
all
accounts.
Just a bunch of fake accounts. Every time somebody is just like, this channel is stupid, or this isn't content, or something stupid like that, or profane words that I can't.
I don't know what that
or
means.
should. I wouldn't even want to.
We shall not sully
on
this
podcast.
content with the words of these scoundrels.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't want to repeat those on the podcast. But every single time I see a comment like that, all I can feel is pity for that person, because I know if somebody had their life together, if they had a vision for what they wanted to do, if they were motivated, if they were happy, they would not spend their time doing that. So I don't feel bad about myself because I'm confident in the content I put out there. I don't think it's infallible and I don't think it's perfect, which is why I pay attention to the real criticisms. But when a person just hurls a stupid insult at me, I can't help feeling just that, they're going through something difficult in their lives. So sometimes I will have a snarky reply, but when I do have enough self-control and I'm actually thinking about this clearly, I tend to reply, "Are you having a bad day?
Sarah Silverman does this a lot.
What's going wrong in your life, man?" Because you wouldn't make this comment if everything was going well. I don't spend my time going and hurling crappy insults at people. Well, that's because I have.
Why would you be on the video?
I have a purpose, Exactly. And if I'm going to put things out into the world, obviously I wouldn't just poop on somebody else's stuff that they're putting out into the world.
Yeah.
So I think you have to start to realize, if anybody is hurling insults at you, it's because they're hurting inside, whether they know it or not. And I think a lot of these people have convinced themselves that they are not hurting inside and that they are superior and smug and all these things.
I'm not the problem. It's literally the world.
Yeah.
It's everyone else.
Everyone
it's not
else
me.
is just stupid.
I'm just smarter than the whole human race.
Yeah.
Duh.
Exactly. Actually, I remember something that one of my dad's friends said once. He was railing on politics and saying everyone was stupid.
Oh boy.
And then once somebody was just like, "Yeah, there's just all these angry old guys," and he's just like, "I am an angry old guy." It was a rare moment of self-awareness.
Wait a second.
It's you may think you still have valid points, but the reason that you're expressing yourself in the way that you are is because, yes, you are an angry old guy and you wish things would go back to the way they were.
Yeah.
It's not purely that you think you're right. It's
so there
just
are two pieces
you're mad.
to all the complaints. There's the attitude, is it negative or positive? And then there's the actual content of the criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's negative and there's no content, just, this is a dumb video. There's nothing to go off of there. Okay, I'll make a video about turtles. Is that what you wanted? Maybe that's what they wanted. I have no idea. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's negative and it's good. And, I'm probably not going to make a habit of coming up with Marvel references all the time, but I just thought of one where in Iron Man 2, Tony is all snarkily telling Whiplash, "Yeah, you could have doubled the power cycles and you do and stuff." And later he calls him and he's like, "That was good advice. I doubled the cycles."
I remember that. Yep.
And clearly he meant it negatively because he was trying to say, "Yeah, I'm smarter than you,"
yep.
But it was good advice.
That's true, yeah.
Sometimes the teacher is a jerk,
mm-hmm.
but it's because they have to answer questions that they feel are inane all day.
Yep.
It's sometimes you can get good stuff from there too.
Yeah. So I want to talk about finding your center and getting clear on what you want to accomplish with your work. Because the problem with criticism is, especially when you're doing work that is highly visible by a lot of people, it's going to come from all sides. And like we said before, it's going to be highly contradictory. So what do you do to make sure that your work retains the original spirit that you intended for it to have, and that it doesn't get stuck trying to pull itself in so many different directions because of all this criticism you're trying to act upon?
Yeah, how do you filter it out so that you're not trying to please everyone?
Exactly. Going back to the whole like
That's
fast
nothing.
versus slow thing like that. Or there's a lot of people who, a lot of times I think criticism can come in the form of suggestions that aren't criticisms of your current work, but they're requests for you to maybe expand your current work. So people might say, I wish you would daily vlog, Tom. And I have to tell myself, that would be great, but it's kind of counteractive to the mission of putting out really good, high quality research content. I can't do both. So I think you have to take every piece of criticism and ask yourself, does this actually further my mission?
Yeah, and the only way you can do that is because you have clarity on the mission. The videos I'm doing are a higher priority, and that's what I'm trying to do. And if somebody was like on my photos, if they were like, hey, you should do wedding photos or something. I don't want to take photos of people at all that I can think of right now. At all. It's just not what interests me. So while that would be, it could be good advice. Maybe I'd be really successful at it. But because I know that's not what I want, I can safely say, that's a fair point, but no thanks.
Yeah. And hey, there are a lot of people out there that are taking photos of people.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that's where my interests lie in photography. Like when we went to the gardens, I definitely took pictures of plants and stuff, but...
Were you creeping on all the people walking in the gardens?
No, not all the people walking in the gardens, but like I wanted to take pictures of you and Anna more than I wanted to take pictures of the gardens, just because I find that more interesting.
I do have a certain aesthetic. I don't know what that aesthetic is. But it's a certain one.
It is aesthetic with a space in between every letter of that word.
Of course.
Aesthetic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, but just like my Instagram, I think, reflects that. Even though it's mainly pictures of me, I like pictures of action and pictures of people doing things.
Yeah.
I really appreciate nature photography, and I like your Instagram a lot. But when I think of the kind of content that I want to create, it isn't that.
So we could criticize each other's Instagram feeds filled with really good advice about what we truly think is good content, but can be completely wasting our time because neither of us should follow that advice.
Yeah, exactly. This week's episode of our show is sponsored by Skillshare, an online learning library that has over 20,000 courses that can help you gain new skills in a ton of different topics. They've got courses on business, on digital art, on graphic design, illustration, After Effects, and Premiere and video editing, music production, all kinds of stuff, web development, even game programming. There is a ton to be learned on Skillshare. Now, every time I do a Skillshare ad, I try to recommend a course for you guys, and the course I'm going to recommend this week is actually one that my girlfriend Anna, who actually edits this podcast, is taking on Skillshare right now. It's called Digital Painting from Sketch to Finished Product by a guy named Hardy Fowler, and if you are an artist and you're trying to learn digital painting, which is something that Anna is doing right now, then this is a great course that actually shows you how to put digital painting techniques into action. But if you are interested in something else, like I said before, Skillshare has a ton of different courses out there, and what's best, you can get access to all those courses for just one low monthly price, less than $10 per month. And if you're not already on Skillshare, you can go over to Skillshare.com/CIG to get 2 months of unlimited learning on their platform for just 99 cents. Once again, that's Skillshare.com/CIG. And I want to give a huge thanks to Skillshare for being a continued big supporter of both this podcast and College Info Geek in general. Seriously, they are an awesome company, so go check them out. And let's get back into the show. So I wanted to ask you if you have the memory to talk about this, what were some of the things that actually helped you get to a position where you didn't feel so defensive when taking criticism?
Oh, man. Didn't prepare this one. Let me think about this. I can't actually think of a lot of criticisms in mind, so I feel like I must have let go of most of them at some point. I think a large part of it was merely the becoming more humble in general and slowly realizing how much I was wrong about a lot of things as like a teenager, like we talked about in the 10 things we tell our 18-year-old selves. A lot of the social things, like, man, I was really cynical. Man, I was really bitter. Man, I was not nearly as smart about relationships as I, for some reason, thought I was.
Right.
Like, all of that stuff. And I started realizing, actually, I don't know a lot of things, and that's okay. And I want everyone to be able to teach me something.
Okay.
I want that. And if somebody gives me something that I can improve, I should actually feel very lucky. Because out of all the people on the planet, I just ran into one who gave me a shortcut to
Yeah.
new knowledge. It could have been anyone. I could have ran into somebody else who was crazy and tried to mug me. But instead, I ran into somebody that gave me a shortcut to improving myself. And since I have a limited time on this planet, shortcuts to improving myself are appreciated.
Yeah, those are helpful.
It's I think it's in large part due to my movement toward sort of the whole present-mindedness, drinking tea, meditating, all of my dabblings in alternative diets, largely not eating meat for many years now.
Yeah.
All of these things have made me a more calm and observant person. And I'm willing to accept that there are tons of things I don't know. As far as even code goes, something I consider myself good at, the area that I am good at, but modern web development that's not using the same techniques, there's a lot of modern stuff, all these new trends, I have no idea. No idea what's going on. I'm just
Yeah.
there are 10 million JavaScript frameworks, and I have no idea. I'm going to gouge my eyes out, actually. I've decided to live in the woods and be blind now so that I never see this confusing stuff.
Somebody was asking me an email. They were like, I need to learn PHP and MySQL for this job. What do you recommend? And I went over to Codecademy to see if they had anything on those topics, and they don't. They have all these courses on these new JavaScript frameworks and all this crazy stuff that I've never heard of, and nothing on PHP.
They're cool, but I am sure I could have a conversation with Will and have no clue what he's saying.
That's true.
I'm sure that I could. Yeah, I don't think it would be very hard. And maybe that's also an effect of being somebody who is in code and computers, because unlike, say, painting, the techniques evolve over time, but code evolves so quickly
Quick.
I have only graduated several years ago and I already feel like I've missed a decade's worth of coding stuff the other people are doing.
Yeah.
The people who live and breathe code. I can't even speak to them now.
Yeah, and this kind of reminds me.
It's humbling.
There's a specific brand of criticism that I really appreciate getting, even though it hurts, because all criticism actually hurts in the moment. 3 years ago, I'd put out a video that's, made a certain way. Maybe the thumbnail's made a certain way. It's edited a certain way, and it's great. It does super well. But if I spend the next 3 years making nothing but those kind of videos, then I'm not growing. And eventually I become a caricature of myself. So when I get criticism along the lines of Tom's run of ideas, or you've been making the same kind of content, or why don't you go try filming outside for once? Of course there's always that animalistic primal initial reaction, like System 1, how dare you say that? I put so much work into this, and look how much success I've had. I have 1 million subscribers.
Yeah.
And what do you think you're talking to? There's that kind of thing, but you kind of have to quash that, because there's a more rational side of the brain that can look at a comment like that and think, am I stagnating? Is there something that I could be doing to push the envelope? Because obviously, if I had the skills to produce a video of this caliber 3 years ago, why is it still of this caliber? The only answers can be that my skills have not improved, or I'm not utilizing my newly improved skills to make better work.
Yeah, or maybe you had the video outside, but it was 3 videos ago, and the topic was a little obscure. So the reason they didn't think you've done that is because they just didn't bother to click on the topic. And you can be like, why do they have a misconception? Oh, it's because of this reason. So I already gave them what they want, but if I repackage it, they may realize that I have it.
That's a very good point. I get a lot of comments from people who are asking for videos that I actually made 2 years ago. And I think you said something along these lines earlier in the podcast. Questions like that, or criticisms like that, they aren't so useful on the surface, because you're like, well, I already did that. But there's something underneath that's unsaid, which is that this person wasn't able to easily find the answer they were looking for, which means that you could improve some aspect of, the information system that you've built to deliver your content. So if you get criticism that clearly shows the ignorance of the viewer, that should tell you that you could be doing something better to help educate them. Yeah. Or if you're running a business, you could do something better to make your design more intuitive, or to make your product easier to use.
Yeah, most of the time the customer is right, but they may not actually know why they're right.
Yeah.
They think this is the problem they want to solve, and you're just like, why do they not think I've solved that? Oh, because the UX is horrible.
Yeah.
Well, that would explain it. It's an unspoken criticism that even they couldn't tell you themselves.
I was actually thinking about this yesterday. So, I got this NutriBullet blender for making smoothies in the morning.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have an on switch. It doesn't have like a blend. Most blenders have buttons on them for doing things.
Yeah.
What you got to do is you just, put the lid with the blades on the little cup and you stick it in the blender. And there's these three little tabs. So you press them down at the tabs and then you turn it to lock it. And that's what turns the blender on. So I was thinking to myself, okay, that design is pretty intuitive, even though it doesn't have an on button or anything. It's pretty intuitive because there is the cutouts for the tabs, and there's the tabs on the cup, so they fit there. They fit. And then you push it and you twist it. But I was thinking to myself, okay, the push and the twist, that's two specific moves. You have to do in a specific order to actually get the blender to turn on. What if the tabs weren't there? How many people would actually be able to figure out how to turn that blender on?
Like if there wasn't
quickly?
a visual cue to stick it in there?
Exactly, because there could be any number of different, moves, and if it's a sequence of two moves, then you may never actually end up in state one and then be able to get to state two from state one. You might try state one and be like, well, that didn't work. I got to try something else. So, from the designer's point of view, they designed it so they know exactly how it works. They forged the path so they can clearly see the path. So in their minds, it's like, well, it's so obvious. You push it down, you twist it. Duh. But from somebody's perspective who didn't forge the path, they don't see one path. They see 100 bazillion potential paths.
Yeah.
So in design, you have to make visual cues. You have to make things intuitive to use.
Yeah, so those tabs are really important then.
Yeah.
Because if they weren't there, even if you did it, like maybe it would start and you'd be like startled. And you'd be like, how I was just putting the cup in. I don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And I can't think of an example right now, but I know that there have been many products or web apps or iPhone apps that I've interacted with over the years that aren't designed so well, and things are not super intuitive. So you're just like fiddling around for a second, and maybe you figure it out eventually. But you can bet that if it took you a little bit to figure it out, then there's some user out there who never figured it out, and they left and they deleted your app, and you just lost a customer. So criticism that seems like ignorance is an opportunity for improving the way that you educate or the way that you design things, the way that you present things. So I know I asked you about how you started dealing with the emotions that come with criticism. I'm not sure if you thought anything yet, but I will talk about the thing that always comes to mind when I think about this particular topic. So many times in this podcast, I've talked about reading Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality, which, for anyone who doesn't know, this is a fan fiction written by an artificial intelligence researcher who has like a math PhD. And he essentially wrote it to get people interested in rationality and in human cognition, heuristics, biases, all these kinds of things that researchers like Daniel Kahneman have talked about for many years, but have talked about in the form of very long esoteric papers, or books like Thinking Fast and Slow for the video audience here, which it's a book that has a publisher, so it's definitely more palatable than your average university journal publication. But it's I've read it. It's kind of dry. It's just study result after study result, and then some conclusions, which is great. But a story that gets you interested in these things does such a better job at helping you wade into the shallows.
Yeah.
So I read that book. I guess it's a fan fiction. It's not really a book because you can't buy it in print. J.K. Rowling would have something to say about that. But essentially, it's the first Harry Potter book, but written from the perspective of Harry Potter being a boy genius who is viewing magic as science and who thinks about rationality and cognitive biases and stuff like that.
Yeah. I
greatly enjoyed it. And it got me into this whole world of researching human cognition and researching the brain bugs that we all have. So part of that journey brought me to something called Bayes' rule. And Bayes' rule is this mathematical equation that it's part of the science of probability. And the whole point of Bayes' rule is to figure out what is the exact precise answer to any question. And it is a formula that allows you to take your prior beliefs about something, input new evidence, and figure out the exact degree to which that evidence actually shifts your prior belief, if at all. And this is useful because a non-Bayesian thinker will either be prone to putting too much stock in their prior beliefs, which leads them to reject things that don't fit their worldview, or a lot of people actually have the opposite problem where they are susceptible to what's called the recency bias, where the most recent information tends to be the information that is believed or acted upon the most. So if you can, and you don't have to do math for this, but if you can start to think from what they would like to call a Bayesian point of view, you start to build this mental framework where any piece of evidence that comes into your life, that interacts with the belief you have, you start thinking, how does this actually shift my belief? And to what degree does it shift my belief?
Yeah.
So for some reason, and I don't know why, because this is a weird math equation, I was really fascinated with the whole idea behind it, and it became a part of my consciousness on a daily basis. So when I started receiving criticism after reading that book and really getting into that whole area of study, I started asking myself, how much should that criticism shift my beliefs? Instead of thinking, I should do that, screw my prior beliefs and how I was doing it before, or that's stupid.
Yeah, that way nothing shifts you too far back or forth and you have whiplash every time you go out to make a video.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a way of processing criticism as effectively and as accurately as possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So that's one thing that's really helped me out. I'm not sure if anything else came to mind for you.
I guess I would say that for the emotional aspects, you get offended, you don't like it, and I think in a lot of cases, this is probably because you respect the person criticizing you, or you just want their acceptance. Maybe if they're an anonymous audience member, you want them to validate what you're doing, accept it, appreciate it, something to that effect. So first, you got to leave the situation. You don't just run away. I don't mean literally leave the situation, but don't think too much about the criticism for a little bit. Maybe go for a walk or something. Then think about it in your own words. If I was telling this to myself, how would I say it, stripped free of all the things that made me feel bad? And then the thing is, use that to improve it. And maybe what you need is to go back to that same teacher and be like, how's this? I tried to do this. Now it's collaborative. You're asking them for further criticism. It's not unwarranted. Yeah. You're saying, please, do you think that this is moving forward? And they might say, well, actually, it would move forward better if you did this. Or, yeah, actually, that's a lot better. And either way, now it's collaborative improvement of your own work. You're not going to feel as bad about it. And maybe you're going to completely forget that they offended you in the first place, because now that they've accepted you, you're like, oh, yeah, that's all I cared about.
Yeah.
We're good. But you want it to feel like, listen, we're improving my work because I said we're improving my work. You're a little more in control now.
I said the terms here.
It was your idea, so you shouldn't be surprised. And also, it maybe will seem less offensive because I don't see, could you help me improve this a little bit? Yeah, it's all garbage, and I hate you. It's the worst thing. I feel like if you're respecting their expertise or opinion and saying, I really want to know what you think, they're not going to fill it with all the negative things.
Yeah.
At least if they are, maybe you should probably not listen to them because they're just really mean. But I think that they're going to be nicer about it because you're showing deference to their opinion, and that validates them. So in turn, they can validate you, and you both learn things.
That's true. And when you're inviting in criticism, it is not perceived as a threat, I suppose.
No, you've already opened yourself, and you've said, oh, I know I'm not perfect, so if you tell me something that says I'm not perfect, well, that doesn't break it. Everyone here already knows. I already told them.
Yeah. And that actually works very well on YouTube as well, because if their criticism is coming from a place of hurtfulness or just unwarranted smugness, allowing them to elaborate usually just lets them dig the hole further for themselves. So you don't have to start slinging mud. You can just let them have the mud backfire instead that they threw.
Yeah, it's not going to get helpful to get all emotional and type a bunch of angry comments up, because then later you're going to be like, okay, I didn't actually think that through very much. And now, even though they just looked completely unfounded before, now I look dumb too. We both look dumb.
Yeah. And I'm totally not perfect in this regard. Sometimes I just can't help but typing something snarky.
Human's gonna human.
But my idealized version of myself, and the one that I try to live up to for the most part, is the person who will ask for clarification on a stupid comment, or ask Why are you feeling bad? That kind of thing. Because I think those are the best possible answers. And this is something that is a core value in my relationship, actually. Whenever we get into an argument, whether it is based on criticism or something else, I try to think forward in time and ask myself, what are the choices I can make in this interaction that are going to make us a stronger couple afterwards? After all the emotions of this particular argument have subsided, how are we going to be better off in the future?
Okay.
I know if I say the snarky thing that is on my mind, I'm going to get a jab in and it might sting and I might feel good for a couple of seconds, but it's not going to help the relationship out. It's going to hurt it.
So you gotta step outside of yourself for a moment and be like, you're mad.
Exactly.
You're mad. That's okay. You can be mad. But first,
Yeah.
I got a pitch for you. It's called Don't Make This Worse.
I think you have to think of your brain as kind of like a man with like a very large Doberman on a leash that just like is barking at rabbits.
There's like
you have to pull it back.
There's like this concept of a second self, and I don't remember where it comes from, some, old philosophy. Mm-hmm. But it's like when you're trying to, what are you thinking about right now? There's a part of you that is observing what the other part of you is thinking. If I'm picturing an elephant, but then I'm like, hey, I'm picturing an elephant, then it's like there are two of me, and one of them is simply aware of the other one. So you just need to, be a little more aware of what your other one is doing before it messes things up.
There's a really cool article on Less Wrong about that called the lens that sees itself. And it's kind of an argument for this is one of the big reasons that we are separate from all other life on Earth, because we alone have the ability to actually self-reflect and, look inward and actually reflect on our thoughts. Whereas all the animals, as far as we know, have thoughts, I suppose, but it's one-dimensional.
Yeah, like metacognition is special.
Exactly, metacognition. That's the word I'm looking for. And as for this like second self concept, from a scientific or psychological perspective, Thinking Fast and Slow talks about this concept of a system 1 and system 2 in the brain. So system 1 is your limbic system. It's your reptilian brain. It's the one that tends to operate on instinct. It tends to draw immediate conclusions from the environment, and it's very useful. But it is also the system that tends to make you emotionally, flared up, hot temper, that kind of stuff. And system 2, on the other hand, is the logical, rational side that can think through things more slowly. It's the man holding the dog on the leash. System 1 is the Doberman that's, trying to jump at the rabbit or the passerby. Yeah. So there's this constant battle of wills between System 1 and System 2. And System 2 is the one that is better equipped to properly deal with criticism and actually benefit from it, whereas System 1 can only see it as a threat and can only act defensively towards it. So you have to start working on your ability to let System 1 control System 2.
Yeah.
And in not every single situation, like obviously if a bus is coming towards you, you don't want to think, should I jump or should I not? Is life actually worth living?
No, well, let me consult Bayes' theorem. Let me consult Bayes' theorem to decide whether this is a good idea.
Let me get my P's,
you gotta,
A, B.
That level of self-reflection and control is important because it's the same way you're going to be like, oh, I'm craving cheesecake so bad right now. Don't eat the cheesecake. Don't you do it. You know why you're craving it. It's because it's terrible for you. But my body says it's good for me. That's what it says right now. No. You can't do anything. No self-improvement will happen if you can't start to self-reflect and on purpose grow and control yourself a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I think this is a pretty decent discussion on this. So if we had to wrap this up, how do we summarize it?
Ooh. Well, how do you summarize it? That's a lot of abstract stuff. Hold on. Oh, man. Okay, so separate yourself from the emotional pieces. Okay. If that means saying, I'm going to ignore that criticism for now, and I'm going to think about it later when I'm calmer. Remove yourself from the emotion because we don't process rational thought very well when we're emotional. And we can be fully aware of it, like you saying, I'm mad you're right, but I'm still mad right now. We know. Mm-hmm. We're in the back of our head, we're like, we're wrong, but we're mad still. So separate yourself from the emotional part. Take a break. Maybe write it down in your own words so that it isn't even their words. It's not even them now. It's you criticizing yourself, which is a little safer. And if you chronically criticize yourself, that's a whole different problem. you know.
Yeah, and that's a
But-
confidence problem.
Yeah,
which we should talk
that's
about.
less perceiving yourself as a direct threat and more you perceiving other threats outside constantly when they're not even there. But separate yourself from the emotion. Try to reflect on it and think, is this valid? What is the attitude of the criticism? Is it negative or positive? Okay, that only gives me a clue as to the next part. What's the content of the criticism? The content is this sucks. That's not helpful content, so maybe next time you'll give me helpful content, thank you. Or maybe it's you're talking too slowly. If everyone says that, that's an interesting point. Maybe I should consider it.
Yep.
And if it seems completely ignorant, like you said before, then maybe it's an unspoken criticism, and I should consider coming at this from a different angle that makes it more obvious. And just accepting that criticism is important, humility is important. Without criticism, we can't grow faster. We don't want to learn everything and reinvent the wheel all the time. If I want to learn physics right now, I'm not going to try and rediscover physics. I need somebody to tell me when I'm wrong about something. And similarly, I need people to tell me how to be slightly more right. Here's how gravity seems to work.
Yep.
Oh, thank you, because I was just going to figure it out myself. But that it's going to take a little bit. You want people to tell you when you're wrong or right in certain situations. Without a teacher and without viewing anyone as a teacher, you prevent yourself from growing.
Yeah, that's important. I think the fundamental thing to realize here is that criticism is an integral part of growth.
It's a
and
shortcut.
in fact, all growth in life is almost like a combat of sorts. And there is pain involved. And there's being knocked back. And there's victories and losses. And without those losses, you're never actually going to learn.
Yeah, and that's society.
Yeah.
You know, the only reason that we can do this is because generations before us kept solving a new problem and then telling the next one. If I was like, shut up, Dad, you don't know anything about what food is. I'm going to learn myself. Then we can't grow as a species. We need to pass on lessons and accept that we have to learn them from someone.
And actually, I'm going to put this in the show notes. It should be on my Instagram by the time this is out. I went to this like trampoline park the other day that has a bunch of gymnastics training stuff as well. And I was trying to teach myself backflips. And I've read up on how to do backflips in the past. So I like know the technique, but I didn't know it. And you could see I had Anna film all my attempts. The first attempts, I'm jumping backward. I'm getting no height. It looks pretty bad. And, if I weren't jumping into a foam pit, I would have been falling flat on my face.
Oh.
And then this little girl who was probably like 10 years old, she's just busting out backflips like it's easy. She sees what I'm doing and she's like, hey, you need to jump up. You need to actually, jump upward. Don't throw your head back immediately. You actually want to be looking at your knees. Throw your arms up more. And I watched her do it. I actually asked her to demonstrate it after she told me those things. And then you can see in the video, the next couple of attempts, I do those things, and it looks so much better. And I think it's now to the point where I think the only thing holding me back from doing real ground backflips is fear, which I can get over with more practice. But into the foam pit, you can see, like, I probably would have landed it if it was in a foam pit.
Yeah, and you had to, the ultimate humility is understanding somebody younger than you. That your gut instinct is to say, I know more than you, I'm older and smarter. But not in that subject.
That's true.
Wrong in that subject. They were the senior.
Yeah, I think that's important. Realize that whatever position of superiority you think you're in, whether it be the fact that you're older or that you have more experience or whatever it is, it may not invalidate the criticism you're getting from somebody who is younger or less experienced than you are. Because sometimes a position of naivete actually allows somebody to see something that you are blocking, whether due to that Einstellung principle where your mental machinery you've constructed over the years actually prevents you from seeing something new, or whether it be because you never saw it in the first place and only a naive brain would pick that out. So never think that your position of superiority, whatever dimension that it's in, invalidates criticism coming from a lower source.
Yeah.
Like we said, Bayes' principle. So you don't have to do math here. You don't have to even think that it's Bayes' rule, but do think, how should this criticism shift my behavior or my belief, and by what amount? And going hand in hand with that principle, get grounded and get clear on what your goals are with your work or with the thing that you're trying to do, because that will inform you as to what you should do when you receive criticism. Should you act upon it or should you disregard it? If you are going to act upon it, to what degree? And then one thing that I didn't say explicitly in the episode, but I think it was implied at certain points, when you actually discuss with people who are criticizing you, when you actually discuss the criticism and you get into a debate with them, try to leave the interaction better than you went in, and try to leave the other person better than when they went in. So again, you're going to feel like you want to get a snarky quip in. You're going to feel like an ad hominem attack is the way to go. But how can you come out of that interaction with a better relationship? And how can that person be better off having talked to you? Even though they were the one that came in and maybe they were snarky in the first place, how can they be a better person because of what you chose to say and how you chose to reply?
So your goal is, no matter what, you kind of want to end up on the same side, even if it's we agree to disagree because this is just what I'm trying to do, or we agree that I'm taking your criticism into account, and I respect it. I respect your viewpoint. Now they're on the same side as you.
Exactly, yeah.
And then you don't feel rejected, or nobody feels mad at each other. You're all on the same team.
Yeah, everyone comes out better. You're maybe doing something better now. Maybe you don't use the criticism, but we're all in this together. And hopefully every interaction can make all of us stronger. And I think that's a pretty good place to end.
Yeah.
So, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Would love to hear your thoughts on this topic in the comments if you're watching this on Facebook.
Please criticize.
Yeah, please criticize us, and we will try our best to use System 2.
So I won't be mad now.
Oh, that's true. It's not a threat anymore. So if you're watching this on Facebook Watch or YouTube, you can leave comments down below or wherever the comments field is. And if you're listening to this and you do actually want to check out the video feed, you can go to facebook.com/collegeinfogeekpodcast or youtube.com. I think it's youtube.com/thecollegeinfogeekpodcast. If not, those links will be in the show notes, which you can find as always at cigpodcast.com/215. And also just cigpodcast.com has the URLs to all those things.
Yeah, if
Facebook,
it'll
YouTube,
show
Spotify,
you everything.
It's all there. So that's probably better than me trying to memorize all these URLs. So check that out. Check out the show notes. We're going to have lots of different resources in there. And you can also go to our resources page to find our favorite books that we recommend. I should probably put Thinking Fast and Slow on there. I'm not sure if it's on there yet. We also have a dorm and college packing guide. So if you're going to college, if you're going to a dorm or an apartment or whatever, there's tons of gear and stuff that you may want to buy and deck out your dorm with that we've recommended there. We found the best possible resources. And lastly, we have a just traditional resources page with lots of apps and tools and things that we think are going to help you out as a student. So check out all that stuff at collegeinfogeek.com/resources. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Tom Frankly, and Martin on Instagram and Twitter at YoMartholomew. So go and do that. And thanks so much for listening. We'll see you in next week's episode. Thank you.